For this afternoon and tonight, a significant winter storm, including heavy snow with low-end dredging.
Hello, and welcome to the Snow Brains podcast, where it's my job to interview the most intelligent people in the snow sports industry and pass their fascinating knowledge on to you, our listeners. I'm your host, Miles Clark. I'm a professional free skier, a professional mountain guide, a UC Berkeley molecular cell biology graduate, the founder and CEO of Snow Brains, and I'm so obsessed with skiing that I ski about 225 days per year and spend 9 months every year skiing as much as I possibly can. In 2019, I hit my personal record with 264 days skied. That was a great year. Today's Snow Brains podcast is brought to you by Alta, an independent ski area where the soul of skiing continues to live on for 84 winters. Alta is a skiers-only mountain celebrated for its frequent powder days, averaging 540 inches of snowfall each winter. Today's Snow Brains podcast is brought to you by Scott Sports. Technology, innovation, and design is the name of the game, and that's exactly what Scott Sports is. It's in their DNA. Skiing is about testing yourself, seeing the possibilities that you're presented with, and pushing yourself to seize the greatest challenges. Scott Sports has the gear to help you do just that. To learn more, check out scottsports.com and see what real innovation looks like. My guest today is Bjarne Salen. Bjarne is best known for his talents behind the camera, filming the 50 project with Cody Townsend, where Bjarne documents Cody climbing and skiing the 50 classic ski descents of North America. This video series has been insanely popular, with somewhere around 15 million views on the 35 or so videos they've created thus far. That part of Bjarne we already know a bit about. What was fascinating for me to learn was about Bjarne's extensive ski mountaineering history all over the world, including Chamonix, Patagonia, New Zealand, Alaska, all over North America, and much more. Bjarne's skill, resilience, and ability to stay calm in the mountains is remarkable. One thing that really impacted me was Bjarne's story about filming his close friend Andreas Franson when Andreas passed away in an avalanche with legendary free skier J.P. Auclair deep in Chilean Patagonia in 2015. And like so many of us who dedicate our lives to the mountains, this was not the only friend Bjarne has lost. Learning Bjarne's perspective on life, his willingness to confront drastic changes head on, and his vicious passion for the mountains has changed me. And I hope it changes you. Hello, Bjarne. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here, man. How are you today?
Well, thanks for having me. I'm doing well, thanks.
When did you ski last?
Last time I was skiing was maybe a month and a half ago in Alaska.
Oh, really? Okay, good. So not too long ago. How many days did you ski last season?
63 and a half days. No, I was just kidding. Like I never count my days, to be honest. Maybe 30 to 70 days a year. I don't know.
Okay. That's so funny because I'm such a nerd, man. I write down every day where I was, who I was with. We're going to start with these rapid fire questions. And like I said, we'll dig into some more details about your impressive life. And so I'll ask you some short questions. If you can give short answers, that's great. But if we find something special, if there's a cool story, let's just keep going. So there's no real limits on this. So you ready?
Fire off.
All right, man. So how many days do you usually ski per year?
40 to 70. I have no idea.
Okay. Yeah. You don't keep track. I love that. And how many of those days are backcountry days, you think?
The last 5 years, it's been all of them because I haven't had a ski pass, but I'm going to get a ski pass this year.
What's your main goal when you go skiing?
Have fun and learn.
What's your main goal when you're making a ski film or any film for that matter?
To reach out to people with the different subjects and the different messages we have in our films.
What's your biggest accomplishment in skiing?
To learn and get an understanding about the mountains.
What's your biggest accomplishment in filmmaking?
The 50 project.
And why is that?
It's a big challenge and a very, very long project. And it doesn't just last for like a couple of months. It's a several year process. And that's why it's a big, big challenge to continue. And that's why it's one of the biggest accomplishments.
What's your biggest accomplishment in life?
Be alive.
And what makes you say that?
Because I think a lot of things we do is very dangerous, especially in my early 20s. And in general, I think it's great to be alive and be healthy. And I think that's for everyone, even if you don't go skiing.
And how do you define yourself?
calm, driven, independent, outdoorsy.
Where's your favorite place to ski?
Chamonix, France.
And do you have favorite mountain ranges? Is there anywhere else?
Cordillera Blanca is good.
In Peru, right? Why Chamonix? Why is Chamonix your favorite place to ski?
I've been skiing so much in Chamonix, so that's why. And I know the area and I know a lot of people there. And I spent so many years there. So that's why it's my favorite ski. And to be honest, you cannot find a place like that to find that kind of skiing anywhere in the world, hands down.
What month of the year is best for skiing and riding, and why?
I think every month is good. You just have to realize that you can ski at different places.
I like that, man. That's a great attitude. What would you do if you could not ski nor film?
Build adventure vans.
That's right. And we'll get into that because that's something you actually do. What scares you the most in the mountains?
Things that I can't control, like avalanches and seracs and stuff like that.
Agreed. The objective danger, rockfall terrifies me. What do you love the most in the mountains?
The wild, and that you're there with your team and you're learning. And it's a big, big challenge every time you're out there. And you can do something that's very, very easy with someone who's never been in the mountains, or you can do something that's really difficult with professional people. So the diversity there is great.
Absolutely. What's the funniest accident you've had in the mountains?
One of them was when we climbed the Grand Teton with Jimmy Chin, and I had a bad stomach and I really had to go for number 2 and there was nowhere to go. So I literally made the most stinky poop like 5 feet from Jimmy and Cody, and it was pretty funny.
It's funny how almost all the answers to that question have something to do with poop. It's just part of the mountain experience. What's the scariest accident you've had in the mountains?
Losing friends and seeing them not be here anymore.
What have been the most fear-inducing and biggest risks ventures of your life? And this doesn't have to be skiing and film. It can be any part of your life.
In my early 20s, when I did things that I didn't know that was so dangerous, until afterwards I realized that, holy smokes, that was not very smart. I could have died.
I think we've all done a lot of that in the mountains. And this is a challenging question that I ask everybody who comes on the show, because I think it's really interesting for our listeners to learn what it's like to live this mountain lifestyle. So how many friends have you lost in the mountains?
I stopped counting 8-9 years ago.
Good for you, man. Yeah, I've had a few people say that as well. It's a big number for so many of us. How many avalanches have you been in?
I personally haven't been in a big avalanche, touch wood.
Have you ever been hurt while skiing?
I got hurt while skiing when I was young, but not in the olden days.
Okay. And any bad injuries like ACL or anything, or just...
No, nothing like that. Several concussions, and that's about it. And like twisted knees and feet and crutches in school and stuff, but nothing more.
That's good. Yeah, we'll knock on wood again. You've been fortunate to be on ski trips all over the world, some very impressive places like Pakistan and more. What was your favorite ski trip?
The 3 months adventure I did with Andreas Franzen in South America for many years ago.
Oh, wow. And where did you guys go?
We started in Ecuador, went to Peru, Bolivia, Argentina, and Chile. And he climbed and skied the highest peak in each country. And we traveled with local buses between each peak and country. And we just had 2 bags with us and a tiny camera and no budget. And that was about it.
Whoa, that sounds like a rugged trip. I might have to ask more about that later. And is there anywhere that you've been on a trip to that you would not want to go back to?
I think I'd like to go back to most places.
I believe that. I feel mostly the same way. Where have you not gone skiing yet and you really want to go ski there?
Japan.
Oh, wow. Yeah, you're going to like that. What's your favorite ski movie of all time?
I actually don't watch that many ski movies anymore, but I definitely watch some of them. Uh-huh. And my favorite segment in the film is still the Balakula segment in the Sherpas cinema in Into the Mind. That segment is still like so rock and roll.
The Into the Mind movies. If our listeners haven't seen that yet, that is spectacular. One of the best ski movies of all time. Thank you for reminding me. I need to watch that again. How many ski movies have you made?
I don't know how many ski movies, but it's a lot.
It's a lot. Okay, nice, man. If you had to guess, is it over 10, 20?
Yeah, definitely more than that.
Wow, that's impressive. What challenges you intellectually on a daily basis?
get everything done that I want to get done.
Because you got a lot going on, right? You're filming, editing, skiing, climbing. What's your favorite book or books?
Born to Run and Factfulness.
Who has inspired you the most in your life?
I take inspiration from a lot of people in life, I feel. So I'm not saying I have one person. I think every individual can inspire you if you see that inside of them.
That's a great answer, man. I agree. And did you ever have a mentor?
Andreas Fransson was my biggest mentor, and he still is.
That's great. And what did he help teach you?
Life.
Great answer. And, this is an odd question I haven't asked yet on the show. So I'm curious how you'll respond. How do you make your dreams into reality? Do you have a process?
I think it's really cool how you can make dreams become reality. And first of all, you just have to believe in them and put them out in the universe. Maybe not share them too much, but definitely believe in them, put them out there, and then they're going to become true. And if you don't realize it, you might realizing it later. But the universe definitely help you to make those dreams become reality.
And do you have a place where you start that process?
I think they start from my heart, and then I try to listen to it. And I kind of keep it in my head, and I store a lot of things up there.
So now we'll dig into more of your big personal attributes, some of your big goals, some of the big projects that you've been working on. And I thought we got to start with filmmaking, because this is how I was attracted to you at first. So you've made a lot of films, and it sounds like you've gotten some awards for your films. Are you able to share, how many awards you might have gotten and where?
I've got some awards for different films, some for films that I created myself 100%. And then, I've been part of other films that been winning many awards as well. So I'd say when I started making films, it was more about making a film myself 100% and then getting the award, and it was just my award. But the bigger films you make and the more films you're being part of creating, then you're also realizing that a film can win an award, but it's a team that wins the award. So I wouldn't say that I personally won all these awards. It's like a team thing, So many different film festivals, awards left and right, best documentaries and best stories and this and that. And I don't know exactly how many, but every year there are a few popping up, in different festivals, not just skiing. I also made a surf documentary about Paige Alms, the best female big wave surfer on the planet. And that film won actually many awards, and you can buy it online on Apple Play and Amazon and all that.
Tell us the name again.
Her name is Paige Alms, and the name of the film is just Paige, like her first name.
That's fantastic. And how long have you been making films for? Because you're probably putting out one or more films per year, correct?
In the terms of how many films I put out per year, some years I don't at all, and some years a lot. Like with the 50 project, we do many short films a year.
Yes. Yeah, it's nuts.
But when it comes to the bigger films, I haven't put out a bigger one in a couple of years now. So short ones coming out more often, and the big ones are not coming out as often. And I started filming for 12 years ago. That's when I started my filming company.
Wow, that's spectacular. And it sounds like, from what I read, it sounds like you're self-taught. Is that true? And how did that process go?
Yeah, I'm 100% self-taught, and I think that I'm still learning, and people are still sharing, they're still teaching me, or I think you can always learn something. And I never went to school for filming or anything like that. I just kind of started picking up a camera for fun, and then realized that this is fun, And I was traveling around in Nepal when I was 20 years old, and I sat on a bus for 15 hours, and I just realized that, I want to start making films. I can do these blogs about other people, and I can do that and that and that. And I just got these creative ideas for 12 hours. And then I came back and just started filming my friends go skiing, and I realized that, I can actually ski on these places with a camera that most filmmakers actually cannot get down these mountains. And then I just started making a film for fun, and it was pretty shit, I'm not gonna lie, but if I look at it now, but I learned a lot, and then I showed it to some friends, and they gave me feedback, and then I have a couple of filming mentors that have been helping me along the way, and it's really helpful.
It's so important for our listeners to understand that not anybody can film these ski movies. You need somebody who's a badass skier, a mountaineer, somebody who can get themselves into, terrifying places at time to get the shot. And, obviously the camera person has to do everything the athletes are doing and more. You have a heavy pack. You probably are doing a little bit more vert because you're going to different places to try to get the shot. So really a big part of why Bjarne is so special is that he can get these places on top of then creating these images that are so spectacular. And so it sounds like on that bus was a bit of a breakthrough moment maybe for you. Were there any other breakthrough moments in filmmaking for you? You kind of a moment where everything changed, where you could truly see the light and see where you want to go next?
I think that comes in most films you are making. At some point you are like, oh, this is how we do it, And then you're struggling, and it's kind of a process. Especially like how to get the story right and how to like show that to people to make them understand, because you sit there and you'd be like, oh, but people must get this. And then you're like showing it to someone who never watched it and they're like, Bjarne, what are you doing? I'm like, oh, I didn't think about that, and then those kind of moments, I think in bigger films, you kind of, sometimes you don't get them, but when you do, it's like, oh yeah, now we're talking, and then you kind of understand how it's gonna go.
So you started filming with the legendary ski mountaineer, Andreas Franzen, and your brother Morgan, who's a fully certified guide, as I understand it. And you ended up skiing and climbing some of the steepest lines in the world, following Andreas and Morgan around, and lines in Chamonix, Norway, Pakistan, Patagonia, and more. What was that experience like, skiing and filming Andreas and your brother Morgan when you were just starting out as a filmmaker?
I moved down to Chamonix in France when I was 20 years old, and Andreas and Morgan, they lived together. So they asked if I wanted to live with them. And I was like, yeah, of course. And we lived in a tiny studio. It's small for one person, but we were three in there. And it was great because we were there to ski and learn about the mountains and basically just do ski season, So they basically taught me everything, both Morgan and Andreas. And I was filming with both of them in Chamonix, but then Andreas and I went on all these trips around the world. And it was so cool because still to this date, I never met anyone who has been that good in the mountains and that safe. I felt really safe with him and known that much about the mountains. And in the start, we didn't do too crazy stuff because they were so much better than I was in the mountains, it's like, but on the same time, I was happy to try things, and I picked it up pretty quick. The first ice climb I did was this classic ice climb routes on the North Face on one of the mountains in Chamonix. And it's like that kind of stuff they brought me on because they knew that I liked the adventure, then they knew I could do it. And, they kind of, the first step to get out there, they definitely took me to my limit straight away, which I appreciated a lot. They also, taught me every step, and it felt really good. So I'm very fortunate to have them, to have been living with them that basically took me under their arms, and showed me. And they were both in the guide school to become international certified mountain guides. When they were going to practice rope rescues, I was the victim hanging on the wall. I learned a lot like that. I was hanging there for hours, and they were like,
oh God,
we can do this pulley system to pull you up now. And I was like, yeah, cool, man, let's do it. So a lot of those things happen.
That is so cool. I mean, it sounds like you moved to Chamonix at 20 years old. You were living with two super badass mountaineers training to be guides, and you just learned a ton from them. And it must have just hugely accelerated your knowledge of how to move and travel in the mountains. And that's great too, that you were also getting that background on rescue. And so Andreas went on to just become a larger than life figure in ski mountaineering, including, which I always blew my mind. His first descents were ridiculously impressive, including the south face of 20,000 foot Denali in Alaska. That one impacted me the most. What do you think? What drove Andreas to such heights, you think, to such an elite level?
He did it for many different reasons, but one of the biggest reasons were he was a very spiritual guy, and he basically met himself when he did that kind of stuff. He was feeling that life cannot be much cooler than skiing down the south face of Denali. And what he means with that is that there are so, not in terms of like, oh, I ski the south face. That was not like that. It was more like the internal process and the mental effort it takes to do those kind of ski descents is just on a different level, man. It's like when he came down physically, sure, he was tired, but mentally, oh my gosh, like he was done. It was just like, totally tired, you know? So that's also a big part, but like such a big part of it to have your shit together when you do that kind of stuff. It's like, that's why most people don't do it, you know, because it's mentally exhausting.
That's true. The mental aptitude and the mental focus that it takes to pull off things like that. Your brain has to be working at 100% capacity for sometimes 20 hours. Yeah, I agree with you. I believe that Andreas was on another level mentally, because seeing that the stuff that he was able to do was spectacular. And you were on the trip with him. So Andreas unfortunately passed away in an avalanche in 2014 with legendary free skier JP Auclair on a trip with you in Patagonia. And you were on that trip, and Andreas was very close to you. How did Andreas's passing affect you, and how did it change you?
It definitely affected me in many, many different ways. I kind of took a step away from the mountains to just think about life for a little bit after that, because you also question yourself, like, should you continue this or should you not? I decided to continue. I maybe don't take the same risks anymore as I did. Not just him, but also all the other friends we're losing all the time, you know, that I'm personally not just taking the same risks anymore as I did 10 years ago. Yeah, it definitely impacted me, both JP and Andreas, because also on these trips, you get so close to each other, you know, you don't have anywhere to you don't have any time to be for yourself really, and you're just hanging out. So it was definitely impacted my life significantly, and still to this day, you know, I think about it very often, you know. It was a big moment, not in a good way, but it was one of the biggest moments for sure.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. It's so challenging when you're there, when someone passes away. You know, I was skiing with my brother when I was 19. My brother passed away. It even impacted me right now, just talking about it, you know, and that was forever ago. You know, I'm 43 now. That was when I was 19, and there's not a day that goes by I don't think about it. And it changed me forever. You know, like you said, it changes you in ways you almost can't articulate. You can't explain. Definitely changed me in the way that I interact with people, the way that I look at life. You know, I really don't sweat the small stuff anymore. You know, it's just, you know, because I know what a big problem looks like now. And so, yeah, hugely impactful. And I find a lot of people that I speak with that have gone through this sort of loss experience similar things, you know, like, hey, I think I appreciate life more. The small things don't bother me so much anymore.
Yeah, I agree on that. You know, it's like you definitely, I mean, I learned a lot from it. You know, mm-hmm. I'm always trying to look at hard situation that afterwards you can learn from them, and that kind of stuff. Like you mentioned there, I think these minor things now I'm like, well, if I compare with a lot of other hard things I've done, is like, this is fine. You know, it's also, this too shall pass. You know, it's definitely time going to heal this as well. It's all good. Just like, it's fine.
This too shall pass. That's great advice, man. And I agree. The normal everyday problems we have in life don't impact you as strongly. And nobody wants to go through these experiences of losing close friends. But when it does, if it does happen to you, I do think it's the challenges in life that make us better, not the easy times. So I can look back to that experience with my brother passing, and I know that it made me better. Your very first film project, as I understand it, was in 2011 called The Ordinary Skier, about legendary free skier Seth Morrison, who we love in America. And I actually saw you guys in Chamonix on one of those days. But how did that project go with Seth Morrison? What did you learn, and how did you get that job?
I'd say that was like my first bigger film project to be part of. I've done many short films before that. And the team that made the films, you know, they maybe seen my films and stuff, and they wanted someone to be on slope and get a couple of shots because CP, they're a good filmmaker. He's awesome, but he's not into going into the terrain too much. So that's why they hired me as well. And they knew what I've done with Andreas for a couple of years by then. So that's why they invited me to be part of it. And it was super fun experience because I really didn't know that much how big that film was going to go and stuff. I don't know exactly how big it got, but I really enjoyed the film. Yeah, it was big, and it's like Seth Morrison, you know. He's like a big deal, especially in North America. But
he's a god out here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I didn't know that so much by then, you know. I was just like, yeah, I filmed these American rock stars, no worries, you know, whatever.
Yeah,
I don't care.
I even heard that you didn't really know who he was, and you asked him if he was a snowboarder or something.
Yeah, I knew a little bit about him. But I was like, I'm gonna take the piss out of him.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So, tell me.
So I knew a little bit, so I was like, I'm going to go up and ask if he's a snowboarder. And I was like, Andreas, can I do that? And Andreas goes like, and Morgan, my brother, was just shaking his head. And I said to Andreas was like, yeah, do it, man. So I just walked up, you know. This was before we started shooting together. This random person comes up with the camera. So Seth, so you're a snowboarder, right? And he's just like trying to hide his emotions, you know, like, no, I'm a skier. I was like, oh, okay, you're a skier. All right, dude. All right.
That's cool too. That's cool. I was hoping so.
Cool. All right. Sick, dude. Nice. And it's kind of fun to make those athletes a bit humble, you know, like.
Oh, absolutely. So, they need it.
And I remember last time I was in Chamonix, because I know him now, and we've been skiing a bunch of times and hanging out, and he's a really good dude. And I remember last time I saw him in Chamonix, there was like a line when people were going to go skiing, and he was kind of next to me, behind me, and I saw it was him. And I was like, hey dude, step in line, man. You can't take my line. I said to him, this is my ski line. Get in line, man.
Nice. How did he react?
And he goes laughing because he saw it was me, but the people around, they were like, oh, Bjarne, take it easy.
I love it. Wow, Bjarne with the Chamonix power. So that's a good segue. You know, Chamonix is where you really cut your teeth in ski mountaineering and skiing and mountaineering itself. And ski mountaineering, it's very dangerous. And so I'm curious, how do you balance the danger, the high-level filmmaking, staying safe, and making good decisions all at the same time?
It's a very hard balance. And I think that in my early 20s, I took more risks than I do now. And I learned a lot during that time as well. I think you have to be out there and be very focused and trust your climbing and skiing partners when you're out there. I think that's very important. And then try to look around more than look what's under your skis. That's what I do a lot, you know. But it's definitely mentally exhausting because sure, you're going to trust your ski partners, but you still want to know what's going around, you know. You still want to have your own eyes open, and then you're going to think about where to stand and film, and then you're going to think about that angle, and then it's like, oh, is the audio good? And then you're like, oh shit, are we in avalanche terrain right now or not? No, we good. Okay, cool. Where are the rocks coming from? Okay, so if the rocks coming from there, we good here. And then you're like, okay, but if you're gonna ski, I can't stand here because if the slope goes, you can escape as a skier to the skier's right, but I cannot stand here. So it's like so many things to think about all the time. And I think that's why it's also nice to be filming a lot with Cody right now as well, because he's been doing it for many years. So we don't have to communicate that much. And sometimes I suggest something and sometimes he suggests something. And I think it's harder to be filming with people in the mountains that maybe haven't done it that much, because then you as a filmmaker need to think even sharper about all that kind of stuff, you know. And I've done that before. Like I've been filming others when they are new to ski mountaineering, even if they are great free riders or something. And it's so hard because they just don't know all these dangers and all these rope techniques and all this climbing stuff. And that's way harder than actually filming someone who's a professional ski mountaineer and have their shit together when it comes to like crampons and ice axes. I personally don't have to worry about them, you know, and that's nice.
That's huge. Yeah. No, I mean, it's an honor for me to talk with you because I've always been, and I think our listeners are always curious about who's making these movies. As a kid, my dad would always say stuff like that. We'd be watching a movie about Everest. My dad would always say, yeah, this looks really hard, but think about the guy with the camera right now. Like it's even harder for him, you know? So I appreciate your perspective on all that there's so much going on for just a regular mountaineer in these situations. And you're doing that plus all the filming and changing positions to get shots. And it's way more complicated to be the filmer, that's for sure. And I want to dig into that a little bit more here as we segue to the 50 here in a second. But I first wanted to ask you, if you could make a film about anything or anyone, who or what would you make that film about? What would be your dream film project?
Someone who can inspire the audience the most. And to be honest, it doesn't matter so much about what sport or if it's a sport that person is doing. It's more about what impact that person or those people can have on the audience. That to me would be like my dream project, and hopefully show something that haven't been showed before in terms of a story. And right now, I don't know what that story is, but if it's such a good one, then that's really, really cool. Like, for example, right now, I'm still working on a big project. That's going to be probably one of my biggest films I've done. And that's a story that I'm like so passionate about. Like when I watch the footage, I still cry. Like, I'm not kidding.
Wow.
It's so beautiful. It's about these female rafting and kayaking guides from Nepal. They were not very appreciated as kids, like many girls in Nepal. And I've been there many times, so I started to know them, and I've been filming them for many years now, on and off. And for example, that's like my dream project, because I learned so much from that. And it's not me telling the story, it's me just sharing it, because I'm this white Swedish dude who actually doesn't know so much about Nepal, even if I spent that much time there. So they are helping me to like make this film, and I could not make it without them, and they couldn't make it without me. So it's a beautiful process to get it going, but it's been taking time, and I haven't done so much on it the last year because I haven't had time and other things I prioritized. But it's coming along, it's going to be finished one day. And when it is, I'll be really proud and happy about sharing their story, because it's so cool.
And I'm really excited to see it. I think that story does need to be told. And I really personally just get so much uplift from these inspiring movies. If I watch a horror film or Quentin Tarantino type of movie, I just feel kind of down or just, I don't know, off afterwards. But when I watch something uplifting afterwards, man, for a day or two, I feel like I'm just beaming, I'm just inspired, and my mind is going to these higher places, and trying to make myself better. So we appreciate you making these films, and I'm very excited for Changing the Flow when that comes out. So you're from Sweden, and you ended up in Chamonix, and then you somehow ended up in Mount Shasta, California. How the hell did that happen? Shasta is a beautiful place, but it's not where I would have pictured you ending up.
I lived in Chamonix for 7 years, and I really, really liked that area. And I did have a lot of friends passing away, and I wasn't enjoying it as much living there anymore. So, and then the accident happened with Andreas and JP. And just after that, I met a Californian girl, and
nice.
I was like, you know what? We should try things in life, like probably want to move out of Chamonix at some point and at least take a break from it. And then I met her, and I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna go over there. Why not? So I just moved over to California, and, we were like together for some time, and then that didn't work out anymore. And I decided to give it a try in North America anyway, because I was like, well, I'm here, and I have my friends and my projects here now, so I'm going to give it a try. And then Shasta was a great community, actually. It's not the biggest town, really, but the friends I have there they're really good people. It's like outdoorsy people and very strong, small community. And that's why I hung out there a lot. And then I moved to Hood River in Oregon, where I'm based now, where I've been for couple of years, So that's the reason why I came to North America.
Well, sweet. Let's jump into the 50 project, because we have to. This project is amazing. I think it's gotten so much publicity. Last time I looked, it was over 7 million views on the videos. It might be more now. I got to double check that. But if for those of us that don't know, the 50 project is Cody Townsend's quest to ski all 50 of the classic ski descents of North America. as per outline in the book called The 50 Classic Ski Descents of North America, which is written by Chris Davenport, who's been on our show, and Art Burrows and Penn Newhard. And it's a spectacular, beautiful coffee table book. And Bjarne is filming all this, by the way. So you've got to be a really incredible mountaineer to film all this stuff. So Bjarne is the one that got the call on this. And I'm sure that was an exciting call for you. But I think what we all want to know is, how much more work do you do than Cody Townsend on these projects? I mean, I just picture you've got heavier pack. You probably do a little more vertical. And I'm curious what else, what else happens behind the scenes that we don't see?
It's a lot of things that's going on. But something that's to remember, though, it's not just climbing a mountain and skiing it down and filming it. It's like so many other things that Cody's doing before, he's wearing a lot of hats. It's like trying to get to the right location. We got to have all the funding for the project, all the sponsors and all this and all that. So it's so much, it's crazy, a lot of computer work and networking. And so Cody's working a lot on that kind of stuff. And he's always like talking to people left and right in North America, like how are the conditions here? How are the conditions over here and here? And what are the local people we can reach out to? And what are the snow avalanche forecasts saying in this region? And then we have to like decide where to go. And then he knows where to go. Actually, this is pretty funny because I normally never been to the place we're going. And he is basically just dropping me a pin. He's like, okay, it looks good in Wyoming. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Where are we going? He's like, yeah, Jackson Hole. I'm like, yeah, cool. I never been there. I see you there, tomorrow. First time I stepped into my ski bindings wasn't the top of the Grand Teton, and that's the first ski tour I did in that area, that kind of thing. So yeah, it's kind of a funny side thing to know about. And yeah, it's a lot of things that goes into the project. And so when we're up on the mountain, then it's like I feel I'm maybe working harder on the way up because I very often have a heavier backpack. Right. And when we all tired, I need to film the others when they are tired, and I'm as tired, right? Oh yeah. And so that's like something that's good to think about. It's like, okay, when everyone's having fun, we need to film that. When everyone's tired, we need to film that. And if there is wind, we need to film that. Everything that happens needs to be captured. And I feel on the way up, I get more tired because I basically work my legs harder and I just have to film. With a heavy pack, yeah. Heavy pack. And there is actually an episode coming out in the fall when we actually swapping roles, Cody and I. Oh, that's great. It's a great idea. So it's kind of in the teaser a little bit. I hope I didn't say too much, but that's fine. I think it's so okay. Then you will also understand how it is for me to be in front of the camera and how it is for him to be behind the camera. Right. So it's a lot of things that goes in. And then actually on the top, normally I'm like, okay, now it's you're the athletes, the skiers. Now you got to perform because now you have to actually ski nice in front of the camera. And that's super hard for them because they've been hiking and climbing the whole day and then they're going to perform, So that's really hard for them. And then I just need to think about how to get the shot and all that kind of stuff. But how I'm skiing doesn't really matter. Like sometimes I just like, I don't care how I ski, if my jacket is hanging down or if I have a camera in hand, if I just snow plow a little bit and then side slips all the way down here. And like I can just side slipping the whole slope sometimes to get a good shot, So yeah, it's a big process for everyone in the team and they're all pulling their part, So if you think about the entire project, it's a lot of work that goes in for both Cody and I, but actually on the slope, yeah, I do carry more cameras and I do film everything and I do ski everything that they are skiing. So that makes me work a bit harder for sure. I am so impressed with what you do, Bjarne. It's because I know if there was a graph of me of how tired I get and then how much filming I do, it just plummets as I get tired because I'll look through my pictures, my camera. As I get tired, there's less and less and less to almost no pictures. And if it's windy or the weather's terrible, I almost never bust out the camera, and people who follow Snowbrains know that's kind of my job. I'm documenting my skiing and my skiing with my friends. And that's so challenging. And for you to be doing that at a high level in these high places, these really challenging places is very impressive, man. We all really appreciate it. What's it like spending so much time with Cody Townsend? He's kind of a larger than life. He's almost an actor, the way he does some of his videos and he can be so personable. But what's Cody really like? What's your time together with him like? I think both of us are pretty easygoing, and I think we're having a good time. Like, we haven't had like a lot of fights and stuff, and I think we just kind of go easy on things pretty often. And he's very professional. He's running businesses, and he's been in film projects so many times and worked with filmers and sponsors, and he's got his shit together, which is awesome. And we've been having our own vans traveling around with, so we get a little bit of privacy by ourselves to hang out.
That's key.
No, it's important, man.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
like, if we were gonna live in the same van for like many, many months in and out, I mean, his farts are pretty bad. So
yes, he told me about that. Yeah, he's explained that before.
yeah. So, no, I was just kidding. But yeah, we're having a good time, and he's a good person. He's a really, like, hands down, he's a very honest, smart individual that works really stinking hard. And this project would not be possible without him doing all that. So he's great, man.
You guys have been working really stinking hard. How many of the 50 have you done so far?
He has done 30, I don't know, 37 maybe now or something.
Yeah,
and
it's close to that.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, 37. And I have done like just one less, because he did the Messner Couloir up on Denali before we started shooting all of this. So he said that from the start, that if I do all the 50, which is 49, then he's going to come to Denali with me, and he's going to ski the Messner with me, so we both can have done all the 50s.
That is a really cool offer. I love that. Man, I'll have to see if I can get on that trip, because I've guided Denali, but I've never got to ski it. I wore snowshoes. It was terrible. It was bad. Walking downhill was nothing. It was not ideal. I would much rather have skied it. So you guys got about 13 left to do. And some of the ones that you have left to do are challenging, right? They're kind of the bigger, the scarier, the more infamous ones. Of the lines that are left, which one do you think would be the most challenging for you guys?
Yeah, it's interesting because they call it 50 classic ski descent in North America, and some are really difficult, and they only see like 1 or 2 ski descents, and some of them are like really easy. Like Mount Hood is on the list, which is like a super easy run. You just kind of run it up and ski it down, and that's kind of it. And then there are some other ones that are really easy, and then there are a handful that are like very difficult. And I'd say there are 3 of them that's kind of the cruxes, and it's Mount Robson in Canada, which is one of them, and then another one is Mount St. Elias in Alaska, and then it's another one called University Peak in Alaska. And those 3 are like, maybe they will be skied many times or not, like, or maybe we're going to try them and we don't do them, or maybe we don't do them at all. Like, who knows? Like, it might be too risky, because also with climate change and stuff, the mountains are changing, and some seracs are falling down, and there are more rocks here than snow and all that. So some ski descents are not as easy or as hard, or they just not as similar as they were maybe 10 years ago either. So that might have an impact on it all. But yeah, those 3 peaks are definitely a bit trickier.
And Mount Robson is in the Canadian Rockies. I think it's 13,000 feet something, is a big, scary mountain. And Mount St. Elias is 18,000 feet, and it goes literally to the beach. It is a monster. I think it's the longest ski descent in the world. You can basically ski 18,000 feet, and the weather is horrible because it's so tall and it's right on the beach in Alaska. And then University Peak in the Wrangell St. Elias mountain range is a huge one. And I've actually seen St. Elias, and I've seen University Peak from a plane, little planes flying around in that area when I used to work up there. And good Lord, those things are terrifying. They're so big and so exposed. And yeah, it's hard to even wrap your mind around it when you see it from the sky. You guys did go and attempt Mount St. Elias this year. Are you able to talk about that at all?
We had a great experience on Mount St. Elias. We learned a lot. We got a bit of weather, and we heard a lot about it before. And it's a cool mountain.
Okay, good. Well, that sounds like that's as much as you can share. And so I'm really excited to learn more about that trip. Of the mountains that you've skied so far for the 50, which was the most challenging for you personally so far?
I think all of them, like, it might be a boring answer, but I feel like all of them have different challenges, like some of them have big challenges in terms of we trying them 3 or 4 times, and then we have them in condition. But when it's in condition, it's pretty easy, Right. And that's like a huge challenge, because you have to go like 3 or 4 times, and it sucks to come back sometimes,
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And some of them have a big challenge in terms of we do them in our first try, but it's a long day. It might be an 18, 19-hour day. And then we are like, oh, that was a huge challenge. So, you know what I mean? It's like different challenges on different ones, but definitely it's a big challenge when you have to turn around and then you just got to come back, which is totally fine. But that's still like a big challenge.
Were any really scary for you? Scarier than the other ones for some reason?
Some of them have been a little bit scary, when you're late and you're actually up there and you're like, yeah, we got to get the heck out of here now,
Because things are warming up and falling down.
Yeah, things are warming up and rocks are starting to fall and it's going to happen, but it's still like, yeah, we're good here, but we should get down,
Yes.
So that can happen, and that's never fun really. But in terms of the difficulty in skiing and climbing, it hasn't been like, I don't want to sound like some crazy guy, but I cannot say it to not sound like an idiot, but it hasn't been too difficult.
You got your Chamonix background, this North American stuff is probably not quite as challenging as some of the stuff you've done in Cham. Yeah.
And that's like another thing. It's like, I'm glad we can talk about it in a podcast, because if someone interview and write something, I can kind of sound like a dick, maybe.
Yeah,
explain it. So the thing is that the lines I personally skied, the peaks I did in my early 20s in Chamonix, they were pretty spicy. And what I mean is like, you don't fall because then you die. And I did that a minimum twice a week. So that's the background I'm coming from. And we did that all the time, Yep. So when you get used to that, and then when you go and climb a steep line in Alaska, like, no offense, but it's like, yeah, it's steep, but I've been doing it so much and I'm very used to it. So if I compare that with those gnarly things in Chamonix, where it's like seracs over you, and then you're like climbing under it for some time, and then you're skiing down, and there is a big rappel in the middle of the ski line.
Oh gosh!
You cannot tomahawk down that thing, because in the end there is a rappel,
Yeah.
So when you're used to that, and then you ski the 50 classic ski descent in North America, it's definitely not as difficult or as dangerous as it can be in the European Alps sometimes. Some of the peaks that we have on this list are definitely on that level in terms of difficulty and exposure and how dangerous it can be. So it's definitely there, but most of them are like classic ski descents of North America. And that doesn't say that they are difficult. Like we have Mount Tapanakavitz outside of Moab. It's like in the desert, and it's a super fun ski line, but it's really, really easy,
Nice, man. No, I think that is why you're such a great partner. You've been through these really challenging descents and climbs in Chamonix in Europe and other places, and then bringing you to these North American classics is you're very much comfortable. This is very much in your wheelhouse.
Yeah, and it's not just in Chamonix, like also in Chamonix and in North America, you're actually close to rescue and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
But when you try to do these kind of peaks, like in Pakistan or in South America, where it's like no one around and you can't get rescued, like that's very, very difficult and dangerous compared to, oh yeah, we started at the trailhead this morning in our van. That's very different from being on an expedition in South America, where you have to walk in for a week to get to base camp and you carry all your shit with you, and there is not a single soul out there. The only way you can reach the people is with a satellite phone every 20 minutes. Like if you've done some of that, then you also understand that starting from the trailhead, even if it's very difficult, is difficult, but it's not the same.
Well, I think from that perspective, it almost feels like front country when you're coming from a trailhead versus being, like you said, when you're a week deep in Patagonia and you have a satellite phone, how quick is rescue actually going to come if you call?
Well, it's not even going to come, maybe.
And exactly. Yeah. It'd take them a week too to get out there, and if they had a helicopter, and it's a big if in those regions. So yeah. Which one of the 50 classic ski descents that you've done so far was the most fun for you?
I like challenges. So when it's very challenging and it goes very well, it's super fun. I think the one we did 2 peaks in like 2 days up in Alaska called Meteorite and Pontoon. It's the one we did with Jeremy Jones, and it's in the TGR film as well. And the TGR, we worked with them up there, and it's called Peak Obsession in our 50 series that we done. It's the longer film, like 32 minutes or something. I think those peaks were like super fun because they were really challenging. Meteorite is like such an iconic peak, and it just stands out. And it was
Unreal.
such a long day, like 17 hours door to door from the car in the morning, like, and then Pontoon, we tried it the year prior to that. And then we got to ski it in really good conditions. It was so good. Like, it was good.
Alaska, when it's on, is spectacular. And I've gotten lucky enough to heli ski on Meteorite, and I got to ski some of the spine, and I have a little article about it. It is, and what you said, it is ridiculously fun. I think it's steep and long. The spine is so cool. The right side is, 1,000-foot cliff. The left side is more in the chute, feels a little more safe.
Imagine to do that one when you start 2 a.m. or 1:30 a.m. from the car. It's like the rewards you get afterwards is like amazing.
Oh, I bet you're on cloud nine, just buzzing. And I thought it was scary and challenging to do from the helicopter, and I was well rested. You guys have been climbing all day and then ski that line. That is a real challenge.
Today's Snowbrains podcast is brought to you by Scott Sports. Skip the lift lines this year and get into the backcountry. With all the new Scott winter essentials, you're set to have a safe and fun time in the mountains. Check out the new product line at scottsports.com. Today's Snowbrains podcast is brought to you by Alta. With an 84-year history, Alta is a place that is steeped in history and tradition. We're not talking about your grandfather's or grandmother's mothbally ski sweater tradition. We're talking about the birthplace of avalanche research in North America kind of tradition. Alta is a place where 5 independent lodges still offer the tradition of family-style dinners, and a place that has ski bars that generations of skiers have frequented.
Which one of the 50 have you done that you would not want to do again?
Some of the traverses.
Oh yeah, like which ones?
This is funny asking me which one, because to be honest, I don't remember all these names on all these peaks. so it's funny, right? People like very often they want to tell everyone what they did and this name and that peak, and I'm like, to be honest, I don't have to say that. I don't care. I care. I don't think of it like that, but on the same time, it's like I don't have to rock.
You're not worried about the status from the name.
No, of course not. So, one of the traverses was like the one over, like in Baker, the Watson Traverse.
Oh, yeah.
I think traverses be fun if you do them in longer time with some friends and you bring a lot of food and you camp along the way, like that kind of style. That'd be kind of cool.
Right.
But when we did it, it's like, well, hands down, I'm probably not going to do that again.
No, I think we've all been on trips like that. Like, no, that's not going to happen again. I'm done. How much longer are you guys going to keep doing the 50? Do you have a date when you're going to stop, or you're going to try to just keep going until it's done?
Just keep going and until it doesn't make sense anymore. And I don't know, actually, we'll see. I think we should just do 1 year at a time and do our best and see what the outcome is, and then we will see how it goes. I don't think there is an answer on that, really. So long as it's successful and it's not dangerous and it's still fun and it goes well, I think it's good to continue.
Great, man. And putting you on the spot a little bit here, but I'm just curious if there might be any funny stories from doing the 50 with Cody that you might be able to share.
Well, the good thing with Cody is that he's happy to share them in some of the videos.
Yeah, that is good.
So he's very honest with that kind of stuff, which is awesome. Yeah, so I can't think about a special one right now, but there's definitely several moments that are actually in the film that are pretty funny and just raw and honest. And that's also a cool thing doing this project. It's very raw and honest.
So I spoke to Cody recently and I said, hey, what are some things I could ask Bjarne that might be funny? And so Cody told me to ask you these 4 questions. So number 1, what's the deal with Swedish fish?
Swedish fish is a very tasty candy that I like to bring up the mountain. It's one of my favorite snacks to bring. I don't bring it all the time, but I know that people really like it. And I always want to share food and snacks, and I love to cook for my friends and just share that stuff. So very often I kind of put it in my backpack, and then as a reward at summits, I give people Swedish fish.
I love it.
And it's kind of funny because it's like, I'm obviously from Sweden and it tastes great. And people are like, oh yeah, we'll love that because everyone's so tired. I'm like, yeah, let's have some Swedish fish. Woo, we made it to the summit.
That's a great celebration, man. Yeah, Swedish fish makes everybody happy.
Yeah,
All right.
that would be a great sponsor. You know, I would be stoked on Swedish fish sponsor. It'd be great.
All right, you hear that, Swedish fish companies? You need to call Bjarne right now. That would be a great, and easy to plug, especially if you do it on the summit. Like, hey, we're on the summit. This is what we do. Like the French do champagne, the Swedish do Swedish fish.
Exactly.
All right, number 2. What's the story with veggie farts on Mount Curie, BC?
I figured he was going to say that.
Yeah.
So it's crazy. Like, I don't know what happened, but I'm obviously into plant-based food most like all the time. And it's like, I cooked that and, you know, I cooked for both Cody and I the night before, and we had the most farts ever that day. And, you know, it's one thing when you're like up on the mountain and you're kind of farting and it gets kind of fun, you know, you know,
Right.
and like,
It's
dude,
funny.
it's kind of fun, you know, but then it got to a point, man, where it was like, this is not even fun. Like this is just like, it's something wrong, you know? So we like climbing up Mount Curry, and it's this steep bushwalk climb that we never done before. And we're just laughing and asking what the heck we're doing. We are cramponing basically on like trees to get up this kind of gully, and we're just farting all the time. And you know, it's like we're filming and I'm like, hey, I'm sorry, dude, my stomach hurt, and you just have to let it out, you know? It's like,
oh yeah.
Yeah. And Cody did the same, and we just like, whoa, this is bad. And we in the end we had to like we couldn't be next to the others because we were just stinking all the time, you know? It's like, so yeah, and Cody is all about like laughing about farts, right? He just can't stop laughing about it. So we were just like, I don't know, man, what's going on. But luckily enough, it kind of stopped in the evening, and I don't know what was in that food, man, but it was not healthy.
Sounds like the most extreme farting experience of your life. You got to share it with
100%.
Cody Townsend.
Yes, it was.
It's a beautiful moment. Thank you for sharing with us. Number 3, what was it like driving only 60 miles per day when Cody and Michelle Parker rode their bikes to Washington from Tahoe in spring 2020, I think?
I thought it was going to be pretty boring, to be honest. When we started, I was like, I'm just going to stop, get a couple of shots, and it's going to suck. But to be honest, I was by myself, and I had my van, and I put my e-bike on the van, and I charged the e-bike in my van when I was driving. So it was fully charged all the time. Mm-hmm. And, you know, the solar panels and everything is just charging out the batteries in the van. So I could just charge everything. And then I just drove ahead, and then I stopped somewhere, and then I put down my e-bike, and I biked all the way to meet them.
Oh, cool.
And then I got a couple of shots, and I had like a Steadicam in my hand, so I could just bike next to them and get some interviews. Like that made the whole film, you know. And then I had a drone in my backpack. So then I just kind of biked ahead of them, put down the camera, got a static shot of them coming up, and at the same time I flew up the drone in there, and then I got a couple of shots with the drone until they were far away ahead. And then I flew the drone back, and then I biked ahead of them, and then I got to my van. And then I did that like, you know, every hour, like all the time like that. So to be honest, it wasn't that bad. You know, I was busy.
Oh, good. I thought you were going to tell some mind-numbing story of, you know, basically driving the van 7 miles an hour for 8 hours a day. So I'm glad to hear it was different than that. So number 4 is, I might not say this right. What's Calais caviar?
Cody asked you that, right?
Yep.
So Calais caviar is a Swedish traditional thing, and it's in a tube. And what's in the tube is basically a fish roe.
Fish eggs.
Fish eggs, basically, like smashed into paste. And you put it on whatever you want. Basically, very often on like a sandwich or
crackers.
It's savory, and it's really salty, and it's really fishy. It's very hard for me to be plant-based diet because this Swedish caviar you can buy at IKEA, and I go there and I buy it.
IKEA, yeah. I love it because they're Swedish. I love it.
So when we're on the road, you know, and Cody loves it. So last time we were on the road, I stopped at IKEA and I bought him 2 tubes, and he was stoked. So yeah, and it's really stinky and really tasty actually. And a funny side note when it comes to this Swedish Calais caviar is in Swedish TV, they even have this commercial about Callus Caviar. Like everything you sell, they have freaking commercials. This is a funny one. So they have this booth when they go to different nationalities around in the world. So they have this thing when they go to Asia somewhere, and it's all these Asian people and this Swedish Callus Caviar booth where you can have free tasting of this Swedish Callus Caviar. And they give it to people, and these Swedish people go like, yeah, if you want to try it, you can try Swedish traditional food. And they speak like that, Swedish. And these people are trying it, and they are like translating it, and they're like, oh man, this is disgusting. I can't believe they eat this, Oh man, this is shit. And they give it back to them, and they're like, yeah, what do you think? And they were like, yeah, it tasted very good, And then it's like literally like a commercial coming up being like, Callus Caviar, special Swedish taste.
I love it. Yeah. So they basically say most people outside of Sweden thinks this stuff is gross.
Yes, that's their commercial.
Yeah.
It's a pretty smart commercial, to be honest.
It is. Yeah. Anything with good humor like that. And anytime you make fun of yourself, that's always smartly done. I love it. Well, nice, man. Well, thank you for answering those funny Cody questions. I want to jump into a little more serious topic. Cody told me a little bit of the story of you guys rescuing an injured skier at Mount Joffre in British Columbia. And I was wondering if you wouldn't mind telling us that story, because you were the first person on scene. You were the one that was hands-on. So I'd love to hear your perspective. If you could just kind of give us a start. But my understanding is a skier fell down a really challenging chute, maybe one that you looked at even that day on Mount Joffre in BC, and he was very injured, and you made the move to go check on him and help him get out of there. Could you tell us that story, please?
That person is very, very lucky that he is alive and that we saw him, because otherwise, hands down, he would not be alive. Well, like 100%.
And you barely saw him. It sounds like it was just a glimpse. You weren't even sure.
We were so lucky to see him. So we skied down our ski line, which is more to the lookish left on Joffre Peak, and he skied the center. We came down to the bottom, and we just talked a little bit, and we just got the last shot of kind of Cody skiing down on the little bit flatter down there. And while he stopped, he just looked up. And, when he stops, I kind of put down the camera because I'm higher up, and he just turns around, and I'm skiing down to him. And we were like, he was like, someone's falling down the center. And I'm like, what are you talking about, dude? Ooh. Someone's falling down. I was like, I'm looking up, and I'm like, I can't see them, dude. No, they just stopped. I just saw it with my eyes. And he's got really good vision, Cody, as well. So he can actually like see very far people in the mountains when most people can't.
That's cool.
So that's like a really
another superpower.
Yeah, totally. So he saw that, and I'm like, what are you talking? Oh, there he is. And I was like, oh, no way. Holy shit. Is he moving? Because he was so far up, He was maybe, I don't know, 1,500 feet up, 1,000 feet up.
Really far.
Don't take me on that. I'm not 100% sure, but we were kind of far down, and we saw him. And we were like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? And I was like, hey, Cody, instead of just running up there, wasting time, because this might not be nothing. But Cody was like, he was tumbling down. I don't know if he's alive. I was like, oh shit. Ooh. So I was like, okay, we have one battery left on the drone. Let's fly up with the drone and check on him. So I flew the drone all the way up to him so we could both look. And you could see his face was red of blood, and it was blood in the snow. And he's standing up, and we were like, okay, he's alive. He's standing up, And we can't communicate with him because he's very far away. So we were like, okay, we need to get a rescue here,
Yeah.
So I decided to put my skins on and I was basically fucking running up there.
And you must have been tired after a huge day.
Oh, I was exhausted. And then Cody skied down as fast as he could. So Cody skied down to the car, jumped in the car, and talked to rescues and sort all that out. And why he go down and I go up is because he knows the people in Pemberton. He's been in British Columbia way more than I have. And I could probably run up there faster than him. So I was like, okay, you go down there, I go up. And we both said like, don't put ourselves in danger. Yes. And I said to him like, I wait here, and I don't care when you come and pick me up with the helicopter, but I fucking stay with this guy, I said to Cody. Wow. And he's like, okay, cool, see you later. And he just shut up. And I started like running up the mountain. Normally I'd say that would take an hour and a half to get up there if you like pretty fast. And I was like doing it in like less than an hour.
Wow.
I was just like running up there.
Wow.
And I was like, because I've been in that situation, unfortunately, before when you're rescuing someone's life like that. I've actually been through that like 3-4 times now in my life to rescue people. And I came up there and I'm like, oh, he started walking down the glacier. And I'm like getting up to him, kind of close to him, but still like far away. He could hear me. And I'm like, can you hear me? You know, he's like, yeah. What are you doing? It's like, I can't see anything, he said.
Ooh.
I'm like, okay, this is bad. I said, walk uphill again where you came from, because he was walking down slope because he didn't know where to go, you know?
Yeah.
He was like, I'm going to walk down and hopefully someone rescues me. But it was...
without being able to see.
It was crevices and stuff there, you know? Because he couldn't see. So if he was walking, he would just fall into them, you know?
Of course.
Yeah, so I came up there and I was like, walk back. And he started walking. I was like, no, this direction. And he started walking towards me. And I'm like, good, walk slow. Like, don't sweat. You know, I said these things to him. And I was like, you're doing good. And it took him like 15 minutes to come to me maybe. And he did not look good. His face was smashed up and his face was so swollen so he couldn't see his eyes. He had like flesh hanging down from his skull and like from his head, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is not cool. So, you know, I actually took most of my clothes off and put them around him, and I was like, can you stand up? And he said, yes. Okay, good, because if you sit down you're gonna get so fucking cold and it's not gonna be good.
Be in the snow.
He was shaking, dude. He was shaking.
I'm sure.
It was crazy. It was not cool at all. And I was just put my clothes on and I just decided to hug him. So I just come here and I didn't know exactly what to do, but that's what I did. And we stood under a big rock just in case if shit was going to fall down. So then I just stood there and hugged him for hours.
Whoa.
Several hours. And I was talking to him, you know, and I was asking him questions and just to keep his mind going, you know, because I didn't know, and I didn't know how hurt he was. He was like, yeah, I'm okay, he said. I was like, yeah, you don't look fucking okay. But he could stand up. He could feel everything, you know. He could move his arms, his legs. I was very worried that he said my back is smashed up. And I was like, okay. So I kind of pushed on his spine a little bit just to feel. And it didn't hurt on his spine. It hurt it on the side. And I was like, it was kind of muscly then, you know. And I was like, okay, that's good. He could move his neck a little bit. And it was a little bit comical, something that happened in the middle there. And this was in the afternoon. The sun was down. And I was like, I fucking hope that rescue comes, because otherwise I'm going to probably have a dead person in my hand here. Literally, that's what I thought. And so I asked him questions and, you know, we had conversations and then I asked him what his name was and what he was doing. And I asked him, yeah, we're here to ski. We do a film project. And he goes, hold on. And I'm like, what? Are you Bjarne Salen? He says.
No way.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, dude. Here I am. He was like, I watched all your films. You inspired me so much. And I'm like, oh my gosh, here I am hugging this young dude from Austria that I inspired to go out in the mountains, and then he nearly freaking dies, and then I'm going to rescue his life, and he's like talking to me.
He's stoked to talk to you.
And I was like, yeah, bro, that's me. How are you? You know, like,
oh my gosh.
Yeah. And he was like, yeah. And I was like, yeah. And guess who's skiing with me, man? We're doing the 50 project. He's like, no way. So I was like, yeah, Cody Townsend skied with me. He's organizing the rescue for you. He's like, oh, really?
Whoa.
So that was like kind of comical. We laughed a little bit, but it hurt for him to laugh because he was so injured.
Oh my gosh.
And then we were just standing there and I was like, oh, damn, it's starting to be dark now. I know the hell is not going to come and rescue if it gets dark, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And then like 20 minutes later, I'm like, oh my gosh, I hear something. I hear something. And there comes a helicopter and just kind of lands. And I just like take him. Like, I'm okay. Like, I'm fine. I don't need clothes. Just take him. I'll survive. Don't just take him. I was like, go. They're like, okay, go. So they literally flew him down and there was a heli from the hospital. They came and picked him up straight into the surgery room.
Of course.
And the surgeons afterwards, they were like, it was a good job you came in now and not like 6 hours later, basically.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. Are you able to share some of his injuries?
It's crazy. He fell down this big slope. Like we're talking 60 degrees and he was tomahawking down. He did big, just touching the ground and fell more, boom, boom, you know?
Right.
He didn't break anything, which is nuts.
It doesn't make sense.
It's crazy, but he was really beefy, really muscular, like really strong dude. I could tell when I hugged him.
All right.
He didn't have a helmet on and he smashed up his face so bad, but he's 100% okay. He had some air bubbles between kind of behind his eyes.
Right.
So that's why he couldn't fly home for a month because of the air pressure.
Right.
But now he is 100% fine. We've been talking to him. He's back to skiing.
Nice.
He has hardly a scar. It's like...
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, he's all good, you know, which is fantastic. And you know, I just stood up there in the darkness when he flew off, you know, and they said they're going to pick me up. And I was like, okay, sure, you know. So it started to get dark and I see a helicopter down there and I flashed them with my headlamp so they could see me.
Smart.
Otherwise they could never see me. And they came and they just picked me up and we flew back, you know.
Oh, thank goodness. Yeah. That'd be scary to ski down in the dark.
Yeah. Otherwise I just had to like follow my own skin track and it'd be fine in the dark. It'd be fine. But yeah, he's happy to be alive. That's for sure. And I'm very, very happy that we were there.
So am I. Thank you so much for sharing that story. And thanks for saving that guy. And yeah, how interesting and kind of ironic that you had inspired him to be there potentially too, man. That's a heavy load for one day. You know, that's a big mental process right there. So let's just talk about skiing. You know, how did skiing come to you? When did you start skiing? You grew up in Western Sweden, is that right?
I grew up in southwest part of Sweden and there's no skiing around there really. And we just went skiing like once a week. Our mom took my brother and I when I was 5 and my brother was 7. And then our mom just taught us to ski. And after that, we just went once a year, basically, to go skiing. And then when we got a bit older, like teenagers kind of thing, then we skied more and more and more, basically. So that's how it started.
Nice, man. And then what spurred you to get so into skiing?
It was fun.
That's easy. That's easy. I love it, man. So you have been doing these projects, including the 50 project, all kinds of film projects, and you've gotten into van life, essentially, in the US. It's nice to have a nice van and travel around, especially when you're working with Cody. So how long has it been since you've been doing van conversions? So this has been something that you've been doing as a business now. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. I started making vans for fun because I needed them for the road when we were filming. So I've done it every year now for like 3 years in a row. 1 van a year, use them, sell them, make another one, create, build, convert, design everything from scratch.
Fun.
And I think that be able to like build vans is not easy if you've never been on the road. You know, like you can be a great builder, but you don't know what works and what doesn't work. And I've done some carpentry before, and now I've done like 3 full van conversions. And I realized that the people that are taking over my vans, I'm basically changing their lives. Like the people I sold my vans to, they've been like, hey, Bjarne, thank you so much for changing our life. And they like FaceTiming me from the van like a year later. And they're like, they're sending me like videos, like photos from their new adventure, their new life. And to me, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is amazing that this brings so much happiness for people, you know? And I really, really enjoy that beautiful work and that craftsmanship and that design and all the hours and all the hard work that goes into building a van. And I like to put my passions into professions, basically. That's what I did with skiing and filming too. So I decided to start a van conversion company this year called Salen Adventure Vans, same as my last name, Bjarne Salen, Salen Adventure Vans. And
great name.
Thank you. Yeah. And I've been to some van expos, and something that's very special with our vans is that it's all custom built and it's very homey in there. So it's everything except a factory van, you know, it's goes in there. There are wood stoves and it's really good cooking opportunities. And it's a warm feeling in there. And I get so many compliments on my vans. So I was like, you know what? That's why I wanted to start my company too, because it's fun. I change people's lives for the better. I can make a living out of it. Like, why not? So it's going really well. We have a warehouse here in Hood River now where we
congrats.
vans. At the moment, we're doing one, and I just sold my personal one. And this fall, we're going to do between 2 and 4 vans.
Wow.
So I hired some people as well. And it's crazy how fun and how well it goes, to be honest. People are really, really interested in our vans, it's super fun. It's a bit unique, and I think that has to do with it. And also it has that personal touch on it with live edge countertops and really smart designs on them, because personally I spend like 100 days a year in a van, and then you really understand what works and what doesn't work. So that's been helping a lot to come up with all these creative designs that are actually key for being out there. So yeah, it's super fun to work with that stuff.
Well, it's clear that you found yet another way to inspire people and change people's lives. You're filmmaking and creating these vans. That's so cool that you've gotten that feedback too. And you really do need somebody who's spent the time in there to create good design. I think we all get so frustrated when we buy something new and it doesn't work well for what it's designed to do. And you're thinking, these people did not use this. They were not like me going out here using this every day. Could you tell us a little bit more about your brother, Morgan? He's a fully certified guide. Is he trying to become a medical doctor as well? Tell us a little bit about Morgan, please.
My brother, Morgan, is 1.5 years, 2 years older than I am.
Uh-huh.
And he's been like, obviously my best friend my whole life. And we have the same friends. We grew up together. He taught me a lot about skiing, the same as Andreas did. And he's a really smart guy and really kind and humble. And he's really good at what he does in the mountains. And he's a fully international certified mountain guide. He was the youngest certified mountain guy in Sweden when he got his certifications. He was the youngest person. So he's been working with that for many years now. He also felt like he maybe didn't want to do it for the rest of his life. It's pretty hard work for your back and for your feet and everything. And he was thinking to do something else. And in Sweden as well, like all the education is 100% for free.
That's great.
As well, so to get a PhD or like become a doctor or in anything is amazing because you don't have any student loan afterwards.
That's huge.
Yeah, it's amazing, right? It's huge. So he wanted to do something, and why not aim high? So now he's in med school, and he's done about nearly half of his time, basically. It's like 11 semesters, and then he's going to continue after that, obviously. But so, yeah, that's what he's doing. And right now he's in Chamonix, France, guiding this summer. And then in the fall, he's going to do 2 semesters in Gothenburg, Sweden, in med school. And then he probably going to continue guiding maybe for half a year, so he doesn't lose his clients and license and all that. And then hopefully become some kind of doctor. And he doesn't know exactly what kind yet, but he's getting there. And he's a great dude.
Sounds like a great dude. He sounds like a badass. I love the idea of a fully certified IFMGA mountain guide and also being a medical doctor. And, I was on that path as a kid. I took the medical college admissions test after school. I studied molecular cell biology, and I did not end up following through as he is, which is awesome. But man, just that major in undergrad was challenging. I know the first 2 years of medical school are grueling. So that's impressive that he's already gotten through that. He's going to be just fine. I'm very impressed. So thanks for sharing more about your brother, Morgan. And a quick question here about body and fitness. Our users, we always get Facebook questions. Hey, ask about this. So body and fitness, how old are you now, Bjarne?
32.
32. Well, you're still young. So how is your body holding up? And what are you doing for training in the off season?
My body's holding up pretty well, I'd say. I'm doing a lot of training in the fall, a lot of running, a lot of ski touring. Like Mount Hood is a great training lap in the morning. I like to go up there, back in all the way and all the way down. That's one of the best trainings for me, is just to go ski touring pretty quick, and sometimes with water bottles in my backpack, so it's a bit heavier. So I do that. And
you can do that year round on Mount Hood.
You actually can, but the snow line is pretty high right now. So It's not great right now. You can run it up though. You can do that. You can just take your running shoes and run it up. I would not suggest that to people, by the way.
Yes. I think it's one of the highest per capita accident rates on any mountain.
So, and I think the reason is because it's so easy accessible, right? You can just take the parking lot and you see the summit and you go up, and some people have never had crampons on and they go up there and they see someone like me who's running up there and they're like, oh, I've been running, I can go up there. And then something happens and it's not cool, you know? So you got to bring an ice axe and bring some crampons and all that kind of stuff if you're ever going to do it. And so I do that a lot in the fall, and I go to the gym and do a lot of squats and get my legs really strong. And I also enjoy go to the boulder gym to get some good upper body fitness too. But in the fall, it's basically 80% like lower body I'm training.
Oh, absolutely. And when do you start your ski season off training in the fall?
I started in the end of the summer, basically. Okay. And I have several months to train.
So at some point in September, you get into it. I do something relatively similar.
Exactly. And it's, you know, it's part of it. You have to be honest, I have to be a bit stronger than the athletes. It's kind of, there's no choice because I have to be a bit,
the heavy pack.
I have to carry a bit more. I have to work a little bit extra on the way up and also on the way down sometimes. So it's in the start, I was like, oh, fuck, I need to work so much, you know, work out so much. But now I'm like, well, it's just kind of part of it. And I just have to stay strong.
Yeah. And it's good for every part of life. So I think that's great. I have a quick question about climate change. I love to ask people who've been on the podcast, because you guys have been all over the world. What evidence of climate change have you seen in your life?
Well, the whole Joffrey Mountain fell down.
Right. I know. Tell us about that.
We skied the Joffrey Peak, and we even say in that film, Cody is like, yeah, you never know about climate change nowadays because, you know, this might not be possible in the future because it's getting really warm and all that kind of stuff. And we put it in there. We didn't know, you know, it sounded good. So good sound bite. So we put it in there. No shit. Like then a couple of months later, half of the mountain falls down and two of the ski lines on that peak are now gone. Like you can't ski them.
They fell down.
Yeah, like the mountain is falling down. Like the mountains are falling down in everywhere in the world. And I think the biggest thing is that when you see these glaciers just being smaller and smaller and they just disappearing, I know that's a big cycle of Earth, you know, it comes and goes. But the biggest thing right now, obviously, as we all know, is that it's rapidly disappearing so quicker than it's ever been because we're too many people on this planet and many other factors as well. And it's definitely a big thing out there. And yeah, it's getting warmer. If you look on the thermometer, I personally don't feel it that much. I mean, it's getting hot some summers and some summers not, but it's scientifically getting warmer on the planet. And you can definitely see it very easy on the mountains.
I agree. I agree with all of that. It's happening so fast right now. And that's the big factor. And what do you think has to happen to create real change in the fight against climate change?
I think a lot of things can happen. We need to be more creative and invent more environmentally friendly products. We can obviously eat less meat because it doesn't matter how you flip that coin around. It's not as good for the planet. And I think there are a lot of things like I don't have a PhD in climate change environmental studies. So I think other people can speak way better than me about that. But personally, I feel do some changes with yourself and with your close family and everyone around you. And I think a big part can be to talk about it with people that maybe don't know anything about it. Just like awareness, I think is good, more knowledge and more understanding of how it's been and what we do with everything right now and what can or what's going to happen if we don't change. So, you know, there are a lot of things, and I'm definitely not perfect. Like I can definitely work on things as well, you know, and I think the younger generations are understanding it a little bit more than maybe my mom and dad or my grandparents, because that's just kind of how it is. But definitely more solar, more electrical things, like get electricity from other sources. And I mean, that's one of the biggest reasons eating plant-based diet, you know.
Makes sense. And I definitely echo the awareness. I think that's a great strategy, is just to help bring awareness to the topic. I think that's smart. Real quick, Why do you live in Hood River, Oregon? You could live anywhere in the world, and you've chosen to live in Hood River. Tell us why.
Why I'm living here? Well, I wanted to move out of Mount Shasta and ask some people in North America where I should live. And I told them what I want, and they knew what I want. And give me your top 3, I said to them. I asked like 5, 10 friends. Everyone said different places, but most people said the Pacific Northwest and Portland/Hood River is a great area, most people said. So I just trusted my friends, and I was like, well, I know it's not the best skiing, but that's totally fine. There's great whitewater kayaking here because I'm really into that. And
wow.
Yes, I've actually been teaching whitewater kayaking in Sweden for many years.
Good for you.
And it's, it's close to Portland, which is a cool city. I never saw myself live in a city, but it's great vegan food, and it's close to the ocean. I'm a big fan of the ocean. And I was like, okay, I trust my friends. I'm going there. So that's why I moved there. And I didn't know anyone here when I came here, but now I'm starting to get some kind of community here, which is awesome.
That's great. And I know Hood River, Oregon is just spectacular. You can kite surf. There's tons of windsurfing. The water there is great. You got skiing, mountain biking, pretty much everything a mountain person would want, all in one very small concentrated place, which is great. So let's just brush on COVID really quick. Bjarne, this has been a wild ride with coronavirus the last 2 seasons, making everything crazy. How has COVID affected you and changed your life? And have you found some positives during the pandemic?
It definitely affected everyone, and some people way more than it affected me personally. And it's been harder for more people than it's been harder for myself. So I shouldn't complain that much, really. And I feel that in terms of my profession, it definitely changed, because when they shut down all the recreational areas last year, all the national parks, all the forests, like everything, we couldn't go out and do anything. And obviously it would look pretty damn bad if Cody and I were like, yeah, we can go and ski. It'd be not cool. So we obviously didn't do anything a year and a half ago for a big chunk of time. After that, when things opened up, we could start doing things, but we wanted to do it respectfully. So, we, at that time, Cody didn't have a van. He had his truck and I had my van. And we decided to do this biking project with Michelle and Cody. And that was like basically quarantining together for 5 weeks. And I was the only one going to the grocery store, filling up gas, going into public places once or twice a week with a
mid-quarantine.
It's like, it was perfect quarantining, to be honest. We didn't see anyone. It was a safe thing to do, and it was legal because we could actually go into all these places because they did open. So we didn't step over any lines, lines like that. And so that kind of sense, it worked out okay in the end, but we couldn't do anything for like a couple of months there. So of course that was hard. Couldn't do any work. It was very difficult. And then I personally haven't been able to go home to see my family for 2 years, but I'm actually going in 2 days on Monday morning.
Oh, congrats.
Thanks. I'm really stoked. I'm actually going to France. I'm going to Chamonix to visit my brother on Monday.
Oh, that's great.
And I'm going to be there for a week, and then we go to Sweden together. I'm going to be there for 1 month. So it's going to be so nice to see my family. I haven't been home for 2 years, like I said. So it's definitely something I'm looking forward to. And something that has been good. I always try to twist something good out of every situation in life, basically. And the good thing, you have to, right? I mean, if you're going to see everything negative, even if it's a negative thing, it's going to be a pretty miserable life if you're just going to be negative all the time. So one thing that's really good with this is that the pandemic taught us to stay in touch with our close friends more and be grateful for what we have. Like, people are panicking because they can't get that and that from the grocery store. I'm like, it might be a good thing for us because we are pretty damn spoiled to get whatever we want, whenever we want. And especially kids nowadays, man. It's like, I don't have kids, so I can't speak too much about it, obviously, because then parents probably, and most likely, they definitely know more than I do. But the thing is that kids nowadays can go and they want that and they want that and this, and they get it. And now during the pandemic, it's like, well, sorry, kiddo, it's impossible. We have to we got to take this instead. And you're going to be happy with that and face it, and period. Like, that's just end of this discussion. And I think that's been like really helpful for a lot of young people, and personally for myself as well. I can't go to the grocery store and get whatever I want all the time. You just have to be creative and take what you have and make food what you have back home. And so I think in that sense, it's been that's been a positive twist on it all.
Being grateful for what you have. And I am grateful for having you here on the show. Bjarne, this has been fantastic. That's all I've got for you. Do you have anything you want to share here at the end of the show?
Thanks for inviting me, first of all. I'm very thankful for that. So thanks for that, and really enjoy your guys' show. And it's an honor to be on here. So thank you.
It's an honor to have you on here, Bjarne. I learned so much today. It's been great talking with you. I appreciate you. Thanks again for being here, and have a great day.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you so much for listening to the Snowbrains podcast. If you liked this podcast, please share with your friends and family, and please subscribe. To find out more about Snowbrains, please visit us at snowbrains.com. You can also find us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Snowbrains.
Today's Snowbrains podcast is brought to you by Scott Sports. Looking to test the boundaries but fearful of high-risk situations? Scott Sports knows the danger. That's why they've developed the Patrol E1 Avalanche Backpack, which is what I personally use in the backcountry. It's the ultimate free skiing avalanche backpack, pushing the boundaries of innovation. The supercapacitor technology, along with exceptional design, result in one of the lightest electric airbag backpacks on the market to date. To learn more, go to scottsports.com. Today's Snowbrains podcast is brought to you by Alta. Alta's opening day is set for November 20th, conditions permitting. We will see you out there. And as Alta likes to say, come for the skiing, stay for the skiing. This episode of the Snowbrains podcast was edited by Jared White. Music by Chad Crouch. And I'm your host, producer, and creator, Miles Clark.